Good morning, T-Wolves. Mr. Quentin here with today's lesson. Now, this is going to be here just in case of power outages or just in case people have issues, need to come back and get some extra guidance or want to rehear kind of what we did today. We will be doing our Zooms. We will be adhering to our bell schedule. So please be showing up for those Zooms. This is meant to just kind of make sure that you know what's going on in the event that you can't make class today or any day for that matter. All right, so let's pretend that we are a second period class. You, of course, are going to go to whatever period you are. We'll head down into quarter one. We will head to week of September 21 to 25, where we will find our Tuesday folder for today, September 22nd, 2020. Here we have a couple of things that we're doing today. One, we're going to be watching a What is a Region YouTube video. It is not a very long video, just a few minutes actually, so make sure that you do check this video out. It will definitely set the stage to help you understand what regions are. We do have an assignment today as well. You'll want to make sure that your big blue button oval is over the word assignment so that you will know to use the attachment dividing the earth into regions to guide you in completing the Google Slides assignment. So if we click on dividing the earth into regions, we're going to come up right over to here and you'll see that this is what we're talking about today. We're talking about regions. Now, remember that yesterday we talked about place, definitely one of the Mr. Help, right? For movement and regions and human environment interaction and location and then place. We talked about place and how to describe a place. That's what makes a place unique, those human and those physical geographic features or characteristics. Now we're looking at a region, which is a larger area. Okay, so a place is kind of like getting inside of a region, you will find a place. The region is an area with at least one characteristic or feature that sets it apart from others. If we were trying to divide the world into regions, we could do it in several different ways. And that's the thing, is that you can actually divide the earth into regions in many, many different ways. We're just going to cover a few of them here. So you have things like continent. We have the hemispheres that we can do it by. Time zones. We can divide it into human and physical characteristics. Very easy. Now, if we remember back putting on our elementary school caps and remembering way, way back in the Wayback Machine of our brains, you might remember covering things like hemispheres. We talked a little bit about them already in the first week of school and also a little bit last week too, when we covered maps. But these are our hemispheres. You can divide the regions of the world by hemisphere. Here, if we remember our compass, north, east, south, west, never eat soggy waffles. Or, if you're Christmassy, never enter Santa's workshop. This will help you to determine how you can find your hemispheres. We use the big dividing line of the prime meridian going north and south and the equator going east and west to divide the world into their hemispheres. Everything above or north of the equator, everything above or north of the equator is the northern hemisphere. Everything below or south of the equator is the southern hemisphere. And we can do the same thing going east and west with the prime meridian running north and south. Everything to the right or east of the prime meridian is the eastern hemisphere. And you can see that up over here and down here as well. Everything to the left or west of the prime meridian becomes the western hemisphere. And so you can then quadrant that even further. Remember, we've already done our north, south, east, and west, our cardinal directions. Now we can do our intermediate directions by going the northeastern hemisphere, the southeastern hemisphere, the northwestern hemisphere, the southwestern hemisphere. So for example, we can see that Australia is pretty much only located in the southwestern hemisphere. you can see that North America is pretty much only located in the northwestern hemisphere. So Australia, southeastern hemisphere, North America, northwestern hemisphere. You could also just say, for example, that Europe is only in the northern hemisphere because a little tiny bit of it is in the northwestern hemisphere and the majority of it is in the northeastern hemisphere, but all of it is in the northern hemisphere. One way to divide the world into regions. Another way you could do that is to take a look at certain areas of the world, in this case we're using the United States, and dividing them into time zones. So even though the United States is one region, if you looked at it by continent or if you looked at it by hemisphere, you can still divide a region even further based on a time zone. And so you can see here that everything on the far eastern side of the United States is in the Eastern time zone. Uh, all of Georgia and Kentucky, Indiana, Michigan, most of Florida, you can see here that a small part of Florida is in the Central time zone, which is where we are. Texas is here, even though not all of it. Look at this tiny little portion here. You'll see that it is in that's in mountain, but the vast majority of Texas is in central time zone. All of Oklahoma, all of Louisiana, all of Minnesota, for example, all these places are all in the central time zone. And you have mountain and Pacific. Now, something you might have noticed at this point is while this is a regional map, if you remember to our types of maps, this is a thematic map. Why? Because it's only giving us the information that it specifically wants to share. This is a regional map telling us time zones. Remember, we can now see all the time zones of all 50 states because even here's Hawaii and here's Alaska. But do you know how many people are in Denver, Colorado? No, the map is not giving you that information. Moving on to continents, again, here you can see that we're dividing the world into continents, and these are going to be the regions that they would share depending on where you're looking at it. So here you can see that we have North America. You can clearly see it because it's been color coded, but now we are looking at it as a region. If we take all of North America as a region, now we can say, all right, this is a unique region based on its area and its place in the globe. South America is the same thing. Africa as a continent, the same thing. Australia, Asia, Europe, and even down here, Antarctica, which is its own continent. Now, you could break that down further, just like we did in the previous slide, by going to North America and then looking at the country of the United States and seeing its time zones. You could zoom that out a little further and look at time zones across all of North America to see where Canada and Mexico's time zones would fall in accordance with ours. Do all Canadians have the same time zone? Do all Mexicans have the same time zone as Americans? No. Why? Because they exist in a different part of the continent as opposed to everywhere else. So people in New York will have a different time zone than people in Texas, but the people in Texas will share the time zone with most people in Mexico, even though Mexico runs along the entire southern border of the United States from the Gulf. So people in California, they have a different time zone than we do, but they have a time zone that is shared with a part of Mexico. So you can see how even though we have continents, you can go right back into the time zones and see how there's different kinds of regions. Moving on to other things like physical characteristics. Think about the way that we look at physical characteristics, just like we did yesterday. Is it something that is part of the earth, something that was there that we did not create, that humans did not have an impact on? So, Landforms, soil, climate, all of these types of things you can see by region. And so here you have a world climate zones map that is telling you what kind of region you can expect based on the climate. So if we're looking here, you can see the red has the equatorial zone. So equatorial relating to the equator. So let's jump back up to our hemispheres, which means it must be running along the equator. So maybe not necessarily in the northern or southern hemispheres, because it runs directly along the equator. And so you can see that certain parts of South America, certain parts of Africa, and even certain parts of Asia are all in this particular region, the equatorial zone. You can also break things down by their human characteristics. You could do regions based on populace or by population. You can do regions based on the distribution of things. So if we were trying to look at Texas, well, let's have a little fun with Texas. Maybe we can see if we can find a Texas map. So I'm going to go to Insert an Image, and we will search the web, and let's take a look here. So maybe, what do we want to do? I know, we'll do Texas climate map. Okay, so here we found one, and we are going to insert this map into our example area. Okay, so now we can see that we can divide Texas into different kinds of temperatures. And so here we have made our own climate map. What about the United States? Well, let's see. How about if we do a United States based on, let's see, we can do a United States power grid map. So now we can see which regions of the United States have different levels of power for electricity transmission. So you can see, for example, that there is a huge power grid network here in Texas and Arkansas and Oklahoma, but there's not really much of a power grid here in New Mexico. So you can see all sorts of different information by deciding how you want to look at a region. Do you want to look at a region based on climate? Do you want to look at a region based on its human impact? Clearly, we can see that these human characteristics of how we live and where we live influence how we use our power. And now you could even break you can break the United States into regions even based on its power. So, type of region, let's say a human characteristic of power. Okay? So now you see how we can break down the United States into regions, as well as Texas, as well as the whole wide world if we needed to. And so this is what you're going to use to help you to complete the Google Slides assignment, which is to do your own copy of this work. So you're going to need to define what a region is after watching the video and after having talked with us in class or reviewing this video. Please do not copy and paste a definition. Read the definition and put it in your own words, okay? It doesn't have to be exactly the same, but you want to put it in your words so that you can show me that you are understanding what you're reading. And then you can do a few examples of physical regions. You can do a few examples of cultural regions. And then you can go ahead and do your own work here. So now, much like I just did the insert an image, you can insert an image and search from the web. Remember, in your assignment, you'll want to click the edit button so that you can insert your images directly into it. Because when you click edit, it opens up your document directly in your Google Drive. This will allow you to import your images. So here you can do a physical region map for landforms. Landforms are like river deltas and mountains and volcanoes and lakes and streams and plateaus and valleys, all that kind of stuff that you can use. Oceans, coastline, tons of different landforms. You're looking for that. You can also Google based on this physical regions map. But the point is, whatever map you choose, you need to explain what it's for and an inference you can make. What do you believe you can say about this region? That's an inference. What do you believe you can say about this region that you've selected based on the map you're choosing? Here you can do a climate physical region map. Then you can do a natural resource physical region map. Now you'll notice that they're blue, the colors changed, and now we can do more human related geographic features. Things like population. So we can look for population type of maps. You can look for where languages are spoken. You can look at how money gets spent, different economic regions. And again, you're going to explain the purpose of the map that you choose and the inference that you can make. Okay? If you have questions, you can please feel free to send me an email or a note in Schoology, and I will look forward to seeing you on our Zooms today. And I hope that you stay safe and dry and have an absolutely outstanding day. You take care, and we will see you soon.